Welcome, everybody. My name's Todd Crutchfield. I'm from the customer success team at Classy. We've got an amazing session for you here today, something that we're really passionate about at Classy, titled Fueling Personal Fundraising with the Power of Story. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce our panelists here. Lori Lipstein, she's from Thread Strategies. We have Tracy Shaw from the American Kidney Fund. Noam Raveni from Massachusetts General Hospital. Mariam Hanson from Susan G. Komen. And we have Emily Sandler from City of Hope. We'll do a Q&A at the end, so if you could hold those questions, and I'm going to pass it over to Lori.
Thank you, Todd. Welcome to Fueling Personal Fundraising with the Power of Story. I'm going to ask our panelists to just talk briefly about their role with their organization and tell us what they're most excited to talk about today as far as storytelling goes, and then I'll do a brief introduction of myself and kind of give you a sense of where we're trying to go with the panel in the next hour, and then we'll dive right into questions. I have a few, and then I'd love for you all to be thinking of a few along the way, and we'll save plenty of time for that at the end. So Tracy, I'll start with you.
My name is Tracy Shaw. I work at the American Kidney Fund. I'm the Senior National Director of Community Engagement, and my main responsibilities are really our national grassroots fundraising programs and any regional or other types of grassroots development events. I'm really excited to be here at this first time at the Classy Collaborative, and we are a client of Classy. We use Classy in our fundraising as our fundraising platform. I'm most excited to be here to talk about Kidney Nation, which is our new do-it-yourself fundraising platform, and all the wonderful stories that have come out of this platform as we launched about a year and a half ago. So I'm really excited to share that community and some of the reasons and some of the successes that we've seen at the Kidney Fund.
Noam Raveni. I work at Massachusetts General Hospital in the fundraising department, and my colleagues and I work on all things related to the internet, including Classy. So we work a lot with the community fundraising program and trying to enable our fundraisers to tell their stories. And I'm really excited to talk with you about how easy it is to get started telling stories.
Mariam Hanson. I'm Director of Brand Marketing at Susan G. Komen, and I'm excited to be here as well and to learn about how others are taking personal stories and transforming it into their brand message platform. I will be sharing a little bit about our new brand message platform and campaign More Than Pink, and we're really excited to share more about how we're turning storytelling into part of our brand.
Hi, I'm Emily Sandler. I am the Director of Digital Philanthropy at City of Hope. City of Hope is a national comprehensive cancer center located just outside of Los Angeles. And in my role in digital philanthropy, I do all things digital fundraising focused, including our DIY fundraising platform, which is called Our Hope. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about storytelling and using your fundraiser stories, your donor stories to really empower your constituents to raise money for you and support your organization. And I'm excited to hear from our other panelists because we had some pre-calls before, and I think we've got some really compelling information to share.
And again, I'm Lori Lipstein. I'm the founder and principal of Thread Strategies. We're a consulting firm that works with nonprofits specifically on fundraising strategy and operations. And so we are quite often working with our partners around storytelling, both on the organizational level and then how to set the right tools in place for the participants and supporters to join in that storytelling. And so to give you a sense of how we're going to look at this topic today, first I'm going to ask a question about actually how on the organizational level nonprofits are thinking, or specifically our panelists are thinking about storytelling, because we know we need to get that straight before you can really empower your participants with that personal fundraising, which is the topic of the panel, but we feel it's important to also acknowledge that it starts at the top at the organization. And then we'll kind of pull it all together about how at the organizational level and the personal level, it really comes together for the full circle of moving your mission forward. So I'll start with Mariam and Susan G. Komen. If you could tell us a little bit about what role storytelling plays in your overall organizational strategy.
Many of you know Susan G. Komen, and we actually were founded on a very personal story between two sisters, Nancy Brinker, the founder, and her sister Susie. As she was dying of breast cancer, Nancy made a promise to her to take breast cancer out of the shadows and start the conversation and find a cure. So what I mean by taking out of the shadows, if you go back 35 years ago, the word breast could not be written or spoken on air. So women really lived in the shadows. They were shamed by the disease. So Nancy, along with a few other women, founded the organization and started the conversation and started those personal stories. She took it to a larger level with the event platform Race for the Cure, where she got more survivors telling stories. And we have recently launched this fall a new strategic direction, a new bold goal to reduce breast cancer deaths by 50% by 2026. To really get this message out, we wanted to continue and transform our storytelling. So we developed our new brand platform, More Than Pink, and it's about going beyond awareness of breast cancer and really talking about the impact that individuals, not just Komen, but the impact individuals are taking to help us fight this disease. A quick story example that we use in our PSAs, Jordan, whose mother, when she was 11, had breast cancer, and Jordan decided to make these cozies, these little koozies, if you will, that you put on cup holders. And she started selling those, and it's been 2 years now, and she has made $17,000 on her efforts. So we have ads and a PSA that really brings that story to life and encourage others to be more than pink and tell their personal stories. So we close out all of our PSAs with Jordan is more than pink, and then we take them to a microsite where we continue the storytelling and others can be more than pink and share their more than pink story. So that's just one example, but I'm anxious to hear others.
That's great. How about, Emily, if you can also talk a little bit about how you set that story on the organization level to be able to support and kind of give a framework to your fundraisers on their personal level.
We know just from, the research that we've done and the testing we've done that our constituents really respond to the personal stories. And so when we send out fundraising appeals, it is always story driven. We're telling patient stories of people coming to our center and being treated at City of Hope, and the care and the compassion that they've received, and their ability to go on, healthy and whole and lead, wonderful lives after their treatment. And so we always are, thinking in mind of being that storytelling forward. But we also know that what we do is complicated, and I think that's, across our sector, is that we're really detailed and nuanced in the research that we're doing. And with science, it can be really difficult to explain, but we owe it to our constituents to talk about what does, something like T-cell immunotherapy actually mean. And so what we've been able to do is really combine that with sort of a storytelling focus. And so throughout this campaign, maybe it's a 5-email campaign over the course of a few weeks, a month, we have different voices across this kind of story arc that we've set up. And so you might hear from a researcher who explains to you, what T-cell immunotherapy is, what that treatment encompasses, but it's also, that researcher, that doctor has a story. Why is he there? And so, we have one doctor on campus. His name is Dr. Badi, and he works in the area of brain cancer, specifically glioblastoma, which is a cancer that really does not have a long lifespan after diagnosis. It's really sad, difficult cancer to treat. And his personal story is he decided to become a brain surgeon and go into oncology because his dad was diagnosed with glioblastoma. And from his diagnosis, 6 months after his diagnosis, he was saying goodbye to his father because there was no treatment, no cure for him at that point. And so when we talk about this story, when we add that personal emotion, that tie back to that person rather than the organization, that's when we really see that our campaigns are being effective. And not only that, but we're also educating people about what we really do here at City of Hope. It is that patient focus. It's really about that compassionate care, but it is also about the people that work at our organizations and how important it is to tell their story to really inspire our donors to make that gift.
Great. So I think those are both great examples of how the organizations have really gotten their own story down first and defined it in a quick, easy way, more than pink, and how City of Hope is about patient focus and compassionate care, which gives a framework for the individuals who are connecting with that idea to start telling their stories and tie it into something larger so that there's a cohesive kind of thread to all these different individual stories. And so would love to hear what your organizations are doing. I'll start with Noam at Massachusetts General to help those individuals connect their story on that personal level to that higher kind of organizational framework that's been set.
So we're a general hospital, so we do everything, and so that is kind of a differentiating aspect that our fundraisers each have a very unique and different story. So that is kind of like the medium that they're trading in a way, and we're able to allow those stories to almost fuel the whole presence for our program. So last year we launched the Because fundraising community, and we selected because it's sort of this amorphous term, and it's whatever you have and whatever you have going on. So your story is your personal experience, and that's the thing that we consume and we show as the many different proofs for how Mass General strives for excellence and really tries to be this general hospital that can do everything well and keep the patient at the focus of all that we do, be it research or innovating new treatments, other things like that. So it's really a matter of we have so many different things out there that every fundraiser has a component that they're able to align with because their story is so uniquely them, and these relationships they have with these physicians are so visceral and life-changing because they've gone through some sort of transformative experience, and maybe they possibly came near death and came back to the brink.
Great. And Tracy, how about the American Kidney Fund?
So we really believe, and I personally believe, that our power really comes from our story, whether it's our organizational story or the individual story of that person. And I think, when it comes to sharing that story, once we're able to share the story, that is the opportunity to give people the chance to hear it and either choose to give it place in their heart and make an act on that or not. One of the hosts of my favorite podcast, Snap Judgment, his name's Glenn Washington. He talks a lot in his introductions about you can't hate someone if you know their story. And I think in fundraising, being able to coach people to tell their story, it gives them an opportunity, it empowers them to give people room in their hearts for their story so that people can act, can give once they choose. They hear the story, they let that settle in, and then they choose to act. Kidney disease is a very isolating disease. It's often misunderstood by the general public, and many patients who have kidney failure, who are on dialysis, are really embarrassed or ashamed to talk about their condition because it is so misunderstood and isolating. It can devastate every part of someone's life, financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically. And so people often live alone in this condition. And so we had that in mind as we talk to patients, as we talk to caregivers. About 3 years ago when we started, what can we do to create a community so those people can come and feel comfortable and confident sharing their story, whoever it may be, however they may have been affected by kidney disease. So that was on our mind specifically when we created Kidney Nation. And the very title, the name of the platform that we gave it, we hoped that it would engender and inspire some sort of a community, a group of people to come together to share how kidney disease had affected their life and help us raise the public awareness of kidney disease and also help us raise money, as it is a fundraising platform. And that goes for everybody who was willing to come and put their story out to the public eye. We've had people who have fundraised across the whole gamut. We had a 12-year-old who wanted to do something for her birthday because her uncle had kidney disease. She raised $600 by putting her story out on her social media feed and asking her family to donate. We actually had a woman named Janice who recorded herself while she was sitting in the dialysis chair and talked about how kidney disease had affected her life and was able to immediately post that to her Classy page. It was that easy to make the transition from her immediate story of what was going on in her life at that moment and ask people to support the American Kidney Fund. Just recently we had 2 really successful campaigns. 2 young men both had lost a loved one, a man named Justin Condon who lost his father. He decided that he wanted to climb the 7 tallest peaks on at each continent, and he attempted to summit Mount Everest back in May. He made it to the last base camp and unfortunately had some pulmonary issues and a broken rib, but he got so close but raised over $26,000 by sharing the story about his father and how overcoming the grief and his father's death from kidney disease and that challenge, and comparing that challenge of living with a chronic disease and often isolating disease. And in sharing that story, he empowered everybody that he knows, his business, his friends, his family, to give to the American Kidney Fund. I think about the methods that we use as a staff. We're a really small staff. There's 3 of us, and really only 2.5 because I also manage regional offices who are doing event-based fundraising. And so the 2 people who work full-time on Kidney Nation, their main goal is to know the stories of these fundraisers first. Within 48 hours, our fundraisers get a call from one of our team members. If we get to connect with them, we ask them questions. Why are you fundraising? What's your story? How has kidney disease affected your life? If we aren't able to connect with them, we send them a personal email and let them know that we're going to keep following up with them because we want to share in their story, and we want to provide them the resources and the empowerment to share that story. And then mainly we get out of the way because the story and that person and their life experience kind of stands on its own. And we need to build that kind of strong relationship with our fundraisers so that they know they can count on us when they need our help, but that we are not over managing their process of fundraising because it's a very personal, oftentimes cathartic experience for someone raising money to either come out of isolation or in their grief to deal with that. And that's probably, in my opinion as a fundraiser, that's the best part of my job, is to see people who within tragedy or tough times use fundraising as an outlet and their story to help the lives of other people.
Great. I personally fundraised as a personal fundraiser for lots of different causes throughout my life, and I can completely relate to what you're saying, that it really is almost a gift to the fundraiser to have a platform to participate in something they care about this way, as much as it is to the organization. So, the topic of storytelling is not a new one that we're putting out there today. I think for all of time, we've known that telling an individual story can be more powerful than just spitting out numbers and statistics, but what is changing all the time is what resources are available to us as professionals to help our supporters share their stories broadly within the community. And that is all. The technology is changing, the methods are changing. There's always new things coming up that help us do our jobs better. And I'd love to hear what you all enjoy using the most as far as tools and resources go to help your community get their story out there more broadly. Noam, can I start with you?
Well, it is a Classy conference, so obviously that is a big part of our platform, but we, being a very large institution, still operate on lean budgets and kind of minimal resources. So we've really embraced open source technology and WordPress in particular as our storytelling platform. So we built a microsite for the Because fundraising community, and we did that on a very sort of bare bones budget using WordPress to put those stories front and center. So we're able to kind of like show, the folks like this is how you can do it. So that's really the bedrock of kind of our program, is this free software solution that then is the front door into many, many different things. So through that, we can create an experience where an interested party can get up and running on Classy, in 2 minutes or less, and they can get their story out there, and they can see messaging that encourages them to do that and allows them to really feel like it's a deeply personal thing. And I think, to echo the point that was made earlier, a big part of our job is just get out of the way, provide the tools, provide the front door, so that in that moment of vulnerability when the fundraiser really wants to take action, they can do it, and they can do it right, without fussing with a tough-to-use page or a tough-to-use platform.
Great. And I know, Tracy, you talked about some methods as far as a phone call within the first 48 hours. I know you use Classy as well, but are there any additional kind of resources or tools that your team is finding very helpful right now?
I think one of the things that we try to remind ourselves is that people were raising money before the internet. And so it's important sometimes when people come to us as fundraisers, they feel really overwhelmed. They started a page and they're like, how do I tell people? And first of all, it's important for us to just remind them where they live and where they exist. What are the groups of people that they see on a regular basis? You can put a flyer up at church and it serves just as much of an impact as it would perhaps as a Facebook post if you're not on Facebook that much. There is certainly an advantage to helping constituents and fundraisers understand the power of social media, the platforms that are out there that are a free way to tell their story and connect back. As an organization, we try to understand and know what each fundraiser's story. Each week we try on our organizational platforms, wherever they may be across social media, to highlight some of those fundraisers and to celebrate their success, whether they've raised $60 or $6,000. I think tagging those people, celebrating and showing the joy that people are having as they are experiencing fundraising and raising money for the American Kidney Fund is really important. But I think it really begins again with the fundraiser themselves. What are they comfortable with? How is it that they normally consume their information? That's probably the best way that they're going to be able to share information with the people that they're going to ask to raise money. But there is certainly a lot of power that is out there in the internet space. But I'm a fan of really understanding where the fundraiser is coming from first, and then helping them maximize what's the best channel for themselves and what they're most comfortable with.
Great. Before I go to the next question about individual fundraiser stories, I'll just ask, because I think this tactical question is really of interest to a lot of people in the audience. Mariam or Emily, do you have any other tools or resources that you use that you want to add to these two?
One tool that we have is our DIY platform, which allows you to personalize your own fundraising experience. And we have thought starters within that platform, whether it's in memory of, or it's in celebration of, or whatever experience you want to create. But I think it's important to allow that personalization within the fundraising platform, because there's some brilliant things that come out of there. That's just the one platform that I think we have that's real successful.
So for our fundraisers, we actually just redesigned our microsite, cityofhope.org/ourhope, if you want to check it out. And this is a project that we undertook knowing that, we wanted to be much more storytelling focused, but we also wanted to provide our fundraisers with a lot better tactical tools at their disposal. I would say probably our best tool is the assistant director on my team, who literally, does the calls, does that coaching, and gives that one-on-one. Because, we have people from the 13-year-old who's doing their bar mitzvah all the way up to 80-year-olds who are fundraising online. And that takes, very different kind of path for each of those fundraisers. So being able to provide kind of that individual coaching, but also to make sure that it's really process-oriented. So you have kind of the structure in place, so you're not, kind of just treating everything as seeing it for the first time. I'd also say from like a personal standpoint, I really like to use the Hemingway app, which is free. I can't remember the website, but if you Google it, you can literally just copy and paste whatever it is you're writing out. whether it's an email communication or like maybe a personal communication, and we'll tell you like what the grade level is and like any of your funky sentences. I really find that it's really helpful, especially I think in fundraising communications, we sometimes tend to get really wordy and jargony, and this is always a really good check on yourself to make sure that your communication is concise.
Great tip. So before, my last question before we turn to the audience for some input is along the lines of how you tie all these different stories together. So, we set our platform so that there's a community, like as Tracy mentioned, for these individuals to join and kind of see themselves in, but then we have all these different stories, and the beauty of it is that they are so individualized and personalized, but in the end, as an organization, you're trying to tell a cohesive story and achieve one mission in the end. So we'd love to hear a little bit about how you take those individual stories and tie them back together to really be your organizational story. And Mariam, I'll start with you.
So we're 8 months into the launch of More Than Pink. So we're continuing, my position is the brand marketing position. So we continue to expand our brand platform into all of our channels and all of our platforms. But one particular I wanted to share with you is our 3-day. Some of you may have attended a 3-day, but going back on the personal experience, 3-day is a very magical platform for us because it is personal. It's a commitment. It is not just a community coming together where we create a community where you leave at the end of the event and you feel like you have new friends to be a part of your family. But it's a personal quest. So initially when you sign up for a 3-day, you have to commit to $2,300 right off the bat. That doesn't even include your travel expenses to different cities if it's not in your hometown. But that commitment, that initial commitment, and then that feeling of investing in your own personal fundraising opportunity, that's where these powerful stories come. And if you think about it, 3 days, 20 miles a day, that's a total of 60 miles after 3 days. That is quite a journey. And the stories that come out of there is exactly that. It's about their personal journey. And what's interesting about those stories is if it's a survivor or it's a family member, and sometimes it's a team and group coming together, as they're going through those 3 days, they are reflecting back on their journey as a survivor, or their journey as a mother, or their journey as a sister or husband. And those are the stories they're telling. So it's allowing them to come together as a group, build off of each other's stories, personalizing it, using their own social media platforms, using their own ways to get the message out, but it's a commitment. And we have seen just a powerful way of storytelling through that commitment. And we have even taken some of the brand elements or organic branding that is coming out of these personal stories. So for example, the ending ceremony where everyone raises a shoe in victory, they did that. This community started that. So we take that as a brand iconic representation of that moment in time, and we actually create graphics that represent this holding of the shoe in victory. Another example of branding part of the personal stories is this community started writing with a Sharpie 20, 40, 60. And as they accomplished each day, they crossed out 20, they crossed out 40, they crossed out 60. That just shows how their personal story comes to life through this journey. And we have actually taken that and created a graphic mark that we got trademarked, and now we're putting it on our long sleeve t-shirts. So it's just a way of taking what organically happened and creating it within your overarching brand platform because it's working, and you know it's working, and it's very powerful.
I love that. Emily, how about City of Hope?
This is all really great information, and what I'm really gleaning from the three of you too is that this is really about the donor experience, and being able to be donor-centric, and I think that's what the Classy platform has really provided for City of Hope when people are telling their stories, and it's that being able to kind of customize your fundraising page. We know, cancer takes on many forms. You have people being treated for breast cancer or leukemia, lymphoma, and when you go through your cancer journey, our patients tell us, so much of their ability to control their lives has been removed. Your survival is really determined by your doctors, your nurses, your care team. And the ability to, after that journey has finished, be able to say thank you and give back is really powerful. It kind of helps our patients heal. So it's part of not just our donor experience, it's part of who we are as an institution. We have a saying at City of Hope, it was said by one of our transformative leaders, there is no profit in curing the body if in the process we destroy the soul. And it's pretty heavy stuff, and that's kind of the credo that we try to live by. And so with Classy, we're able to customize to give people the opportunity, if they want to raise money for breast cancer, because my mom had breast cancer, that's what they can raise money for. We get even so nuanced to say, we have a really popular doctor, his name is Dr. Foreman, and everybody loves him. And so if, Dr. Foreman saved my life, is what I hear a lot from our patients. I want to raise money for Dr. Foreman's research. And we're able to make that happen. And the stories that come out of these pages are so touching, they're so heartfelt. And what's so important about using that as a marketing material is really that our other patients, our other constituents, other donors can see themselves in that story. So really, your donors, your fundraisers tell a much better story about your institution than you can tell yourself. And so excuse me, so utilizing those stories is really what can drive your organization forward in order to accomplish and to meet your goals. So that's one of the things that we were able to do, as well as redesigning this new microsite, knowing that we wanted to be more story forward. We heard from our fundraisers, I want to know what other people are doing. I want to be inspired by what other people are doing. It really helps too on the question of I don't know where to start. By seeing how other people have accomplished their fundraising, you really kind of empower other people to say, oh, I could do that too. I didn't know it'd be so easy. So that's really how kind of we've thought about our DIY fundraising program and how to kind of ignite other people's passion and fire.
Yeah, and I think to add on, I think I've already heard this a couple of times today already. Mission focus, impact focus, and flexibility. When someone is raising money, what they're doing is providing a vehicle for impact. And I love the fact that we have a really collaborative relationship with our marketing and our communications department, and we sit together and we talk about these stories. And like I said earlier, whether they're raising $60,000 or $6,000, those dollars equal impact for the American Kidney Fund. And then going back to social media or going back to a blog and saying this person fundraised X number of dollars, what that meant for us is this, and expressing that back out to the general public, it certainly strengthens our mission and our brand, but it also thanks the fundraiser, and it shows people how they can see themselves in that story. They can make a similar impact if they will fundraise. Another thing that comes to mind is the flexibility, what you're just mentioning. If fundraisers can somehow have power over where that money is spent, that is so. Those are the most successful fundraising stories I think I've seen. And we have a program, it's called a safety net grant, and people can get essentially $100 to help offset medical copays and things. And that's a big deal, financial support in the world today. And so many people want to fundraise for that program, and we are able to because we serve the entire country by zip code. We know where we're spending that money by patient. And if someone is fundraising in Tulsa, Oklahoma or Dallas, Texas, they can say, I want to raise money for your safety net grant program so that people in my town or in my city can take part of that program and have those resources that they need. And as an organization, I know I've been in other organizations where that feels very uncomfortable, where you're taking the unrestricted dollars and you're honing in, but I feel like it's really important to be flexible because fundraisers and donors want to see impact, and they want that power to say what I did impacted my neighbor and it helped them feel better and do more.
And is there anywhere, Tracy's mentioned social media and a blog. I'd love to hear if there's anywhere else that you all are sharing these stories as you collect them. I mean, as fundraisers set up their own pages and they're telling their personal story on your platforms, where else are you kind of repeating that so that you're helping get it out to your community? Any other more like tactical advice that you can offer the crowd about ways you can keep sharing those stories across different mediums? Mariam, you look like...
With More Than Pink, we actually we're taking real stories and putting them in our PSAs. So in all of our print PSAs, in our traditional TV, and all of our different channels through our public service announcement and our national distribution list, we're using those stories just like the Jordan mentioned. But we're also telling other stories in these PSAs, like the researchers and the people behind the scenes that are making an impact. Again, More Than Pink is about going beyond awareness of breast cancer and showing impact. And it's not about Komen, it's about, by example, showing how anyone, regardless of how large or small, Jordan a perfect example, but telling that story that anyone can do something. And then taking them through the web experience, to our microsite and giving them the proper channels to go through and continue their brand experience through the digital world, obviously allows them the opportunity to share and continue telling that story. If you go to our microsite for More Than Pink, you'll see there's a social aggregator, but right at the top, you can actually type in how you are more than pink and then share it immediately through your social channel. So it's just a direct path to making it easy to share. And that's really the best part about it, digital.
Well, I know fundraising is a relationship business. And so even if we are digital and we're pushing stuff out, it's still really about creating a relationship. And what we've seen is the stories that we share, those fundraisers, those donors become much, much more engaged with City of Hope. So I also look at it from not just how am I telling the best story of City of Hope, it's also who are the people, who are the fundraisers that I want to engage further, because then they'll become year-over-year donors, they'll fundraise again. They could be, it's a pipeline builder for your organization. So they could become special gifts, major gifts, foundations, et cetera. So really looking at it just beyond the scope of, your one individual role within your office, but also how you can kind of fulfill the goals for your organization overall.
Technology to help you do that. So we, have the benefit of we in real time take these stories from Classy and we push them through to our website. So every time you come, you have a different experience. You're seeing individuals who are doing the same thing, but again, we're kind of hands off. We don't have a writer who sits there and curates these stories. We just ingest them in real time and redisplay them. And we don't have an engineer or someone who does that. We have the benefit of some easy-to-use technologies that you can bring together at a nominal cost and provide that service of elevating those individual stories without, losing staff time behind it.
We also use our stories in stewardship pieces with other big donors. I can think of a couple examples. We have a Calendar Kid art contest. Children who have kidney disease submit art, and they're picked to go into the calendar for next year. And we have taken those prints and done canvas prints of them. And so those are the thank you gifts that we send to major donors, to corporate sponsors. And within that, when we ship the package, we always share the story of the child and what the painting or the drawing meant to that child, and how their corporate or their big contribution has helped us have an impact. And I think these stories can be very powerful when you thank your donors and when you send information out to the house file or to whatever it is to share what it is that you're accomplishing and to make people feel like they're part of that community. Those fundraiser stories and what they're accomplishing are really powerful.
One other channel I wanted to mention is our partners. So it was really important during our launch this past fall, with a limited media budget and channels for getting out, and digital and social can't do everything. But our partners are so important to make sure that they are consistent with what they're doing with your message. So an example is WWE was one of our launch partners for More Than Pink. They recognized 5 survivors on stage, recognized them as being more than pink, and continued on that kind of brand experience through their channels as well. We also had Simon's Malls and several other partners that really helped us get that message, but it was consistent, and that was the key. They were doing the same kind of storytelling that we were doing on our channels.
Great. And I'll just add some of the ways I've seen it done with some of our partners, in addition to everything that's been said, but in an annual report, to make it more than just the numbers of the year, but the stories of the year and what you've done. Also, as mission moments with your own team and your own staff and board members, to be sharing out those stories internally is just as important as externally, to keep your own team motivated and connected to what the work they're doing every day. And in any kind of press release or attempt for earned media around an individual story is always a more interesting pitch than, again, the big numbers and kind of the statistics. So hopefully those are some good ideas for no matter what size organization you are and what mission you're working toward here in the audience today. You can take away some kind of tactics that you can use for storytelling. And speaking of our wonderful audience, I'd love to give you all the chance to ask some questions to our panelists now. So I know we've got some microphones if anyone wants to raise a hand. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Amanda Graff, and I work at Lydia Home in Chicago. And my question is, obviously you have a lot of experience with storytelling, and it's our 100th year, and so I'm trying to create a lot of content, but my problem has been that the clients that we have are a protected class. And so do you have any advice in a social media and YouTube environment, and in general how accessible stories are, how to write or craft stories that kind of restore dignity to the situation and are still kind of discreet? Does that make sense?
So we similarly, working with people who are affected by chronic disease, we have a lot of that kind of personal information about their situation. We provide financial assistance and those kinds of things. Couple of things. First of all, the story is probably meaningful as a story itself of someone who is having this experience. We have a few times in some of our asks and the things that we've published have taken that story and told it in a general sense of someone else. So it doesn't identify the person that is their actual story. So that's one way. Secondly, if those people are fundraising, whether they're protected class or not, if they are sharing their story, then I think it would be appropriate to talk to them. If you're sharing your story in the public, can we also share your story as well? And making that connection, getting those permissions, of course, but if someone is willing to share their story in the public, then it takes that restriction away, because they're already putting it out into the world. And so making those connections and having that conversation, your story has inspired us, has inspired others. Can we share that? Can we tag you? Can we tell your story? So, anyone else?
I see another hand over here. Ted. Oh, great.
Hi, I'm Whitney. I'm with the Idaho Youth Ranch, and a challenge that we've been having that you touched on is it really has to start at the top. And something we struggle with is getting our board members, we have a volunteer board, mobilized and excited about doing personal fundraising themselves. Do you have any advice or tips about how you've gotten your board members activated? You're smiling, so I think I'm not alone here. About what we can do better to get them to go out to their friends to bring in more money.
Yeah. What age range?
Overall, baby boomers.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, and what we have found is that our baby boomers are our most successful fundraisers because they have the networks. And because they're now all on Facebook, and we all know that's like the largest growing segment on Facebook. It's all old people now, and they're really effective. And so we have like multiple kind of different groups throughout the country, and we have this what we call a chapter group, and they call themselves the Board of Governors. They really govern nothing, but it's like a legacy kind of advisory sort of, and they have done personal fundraising, and what it takes is a lot of one-on-one coaching. And it also takes having one or two people, ideally two people, who stand up and say, I'm gonna do it right, and then provide them all the tools, all the coaching that they need, and then you glorify them to the rest of the board. Literally, you like shower them with praise. They're the most amazing 2 board members you have ever had, that they have been able to be so successful, and you can be just like them. I'll show you how, and then I'll glorify you with praise later. I get in trouble sometimes for being too blunt when I talk about donors and what motivations are, but really a lot of peer-to-peer is about recognition. So don't forget that aspect when we're talking about what kind of is motivating people to fundraise. And so that from my experience would be my advice of a way to get started.
There's a lot of power in ego, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. And board members are humans with a story as well, and understanding that one-on-one, what's motivating them to show up at a board meeting, and then building that relationship, and then the ego of the celebration. We saw the competition is what drove some of our most successful board fundraising. We had 2 board members that stewarded a golf event, and we had this other set of board members that wanted to do more. And so we helped them create personal fundraising pages so that they can, in a good way, compete with each other, because that professional peer pressure helps so much. But they have stories as well, and they can be just as successful, but it starts with that relationship. Absolutely.
And I can add, we work with a lot of boards when we're working with our partners, and quite often the resistance on board member fundraising comes from 2 places I see. One, that there's not a clear goal. So when you're talking about sharing personal stories and personal fundraising pages, but making a very clear goal that the group is working toward. Maybe it's each person on the board is aiming to raise the same amount of money, or collectively as a group are aiming to raise the amount of money, but making a really clear goal around what you're asking them to do. So it's not this generic set up a page and kind of do your thing. And then the other is around having the tools and feeling like, these are not professional fundraisers, and now they're being asked to do this fundraising activity. And I think it's exactly what Emily had said, is being really walking them through the steps of doing it, and maybe even setting up the page for them so that part is just not part of the lift, but talking through the tactics that ask 50 people for $50, or just breaking it down the same way you do with your individual fundraisers. I think sometimes we assume board members know that because they're involved with the organization in a higher way, and we don't think about how that might not be their expertise and why they joined the board originally, and just need a little bit of extra kind of structure and guidance around the ask, and that the ask is clear with a goal to be able to be successful in what you want them to do. I see a hand back here.
Thanks a lot for doing this and for enduring the heat. I work for a foundation that is actually San Francisco General Hospital Foundation. So it's great to see healthcare represented here so broadly. We're blessed with a number of corporate relationships. We have a lot of corporate supporters for our foundation in San Francisco. Most of that funding comes in the form of sponsorships, and we recognize them at a luncheon. But we're pivoting to a broader corporate engagement campaign, and I'm wondering if you can share any experience with corporate co-branded engagement campaigns where storytelling was really at the heart of that.
A really strong corporate national program at City of Hope. It's a different kind of model, but We work within the business products industry, and what we've seen really effective is kind of doing matching gifts. So we have 5 matching gift campaigns throughout the year, and they are patient storytelling focused. Actually, right now on Our Hope, all funds raised through the end of July are matched dollar for dollar by Post-it brands. So it's extending not just in the direct response world, but also now into our DIY fundraising. We also have found really success in kind of Giving Day campaigns. So, we have a really strong partnership with Purell, who matches all of our Giving Tuesday donations. So, we've seen from a corporate side, they're looking for the dollars raised, but they're also looking for impressions. So, being able to go out in the mail, online, kind of provides them, if you can bundle it kind of in multiple ways to really show that impact of the impressions and kind of the reach that you're getting, we've seen that being really effective with our corporate partners.
Last year, we launched a really successful campaign with Sanofi Renal to tell the story of the first 30 days of dialysis. It's very niche because it's what we do, and I think that that's really important to understand. If you're with corporate supporters, it's certainly, you can build mutually beneficial programs like that, and they provided the funding for us to provide resources for dialysis social workers, nutritionists, nephrologists to help people come into dialysis and have a very successful first 30 days. And the story is told by 2 or 3 patients and their experience in the first 30 days of going into a clinic and taking on this whole new life. Certainly, if we knew through research, because we had that information, and so did our corporate sponsor, that their patients are more adherent if they have a more successful the first 30 to 60, 90 days within treatment. And so we were really trying to turn up the notch with adherence, but we did it through storytelling. And then we provided resources to then go back that were co-branded with our brand and their brand for people who are on the ground working with patients that are in those situations on a daily basis, so that the brand is there, the recognition is there, but the story is there about how these people, these 3 patients, were able to take on those first 30 days, and then how their success during their 30 days kind of set the standard for the next years of their life while they were on dialysis. So I think it's important to know what you can provide that partner, and think about interesting and unusual ways that you can share story, but also have impact where they come from, whether it's a pharmaceutical or other types of industry that are looking for help in your industry.
To what is that niche cause. So, at Mass General, we have a number of events that are really successful because they have corporate partners that care deeply about that specific cause. So we have a gala. I mean, it's not community fundraising, but it is a thing where the corporate partner brings the bodies and brings the sponsorships to that event, and that's their network. So we don't communicate to the people they bring. We have some ambassadors at the corporation who then use their internal business channels and create sort of a culture of awareness inside the company, and that's where we've been really successful. So they're able to bring in, kind of these audiences that we would never be exposed to, because our fundraising base is grateful patients, people who've come to the hospital and want to give back, and through those sort of corporate ambassadorships, we can find people who have great interest to support something, but really wouldn't be in our universe at all.
For one more question, if there's any more. The lights are kind of bright. Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Vitamin Angels in Santa Barbara. Our model is a little bit different. We provide grants of nutrition vitamins mostly to nonprofits all over the world. So sometimes gathering content can be a little bit difficult. It's shorter form. I'm just wondering if you guys have any thoughts in terms of content that has done better. Do you feel like long form storytelling has been better, or do you have any advice for unique ways of telling short form content that's been successful for you?
Right to the heart of why someone, say, is a supporter. So we have cases where the outcome is hard to report out on. They gave to some fund that broadly supports the hospital, but rather getting into the heart of sort of that donor's motivation and using that as a way to tell the story without actually having that outcome. So really using that as a means of being able to get people to find someone they can kind of like identify with. So that's content that's readily easy to produce because we're just asking for a personal narrative, and from that we can extract something very, brief, like I do it every year because I care about my mom, but we don't need to know what the outcome is or what, particular type of cancer that individual's mother passed from, for example.
You can ask a lot of good leading questions on social media platforms and people can respond, and then you can start to filter some of those responses. And we've actually reached out to some of the people who've commented on our photos and things for just those bullet points, like you're saying, I do this because, or this is important to me, or this is what makes a difference to me, and then use that and then pull it just very brief with looking at those long term, just quick right on a social media platform.
We actually could take one more question if there are any. That was a quick one. Is there a hand up? Okay.
So a question I have is, I work for an organization that's been around for 20 years. We have supporters that have been with us, the majority of which since the very beginning. So they're used to writing their checks, and then to engage them in this new kind of fundraising that's online. We've just been with Classy for about a month now. So we're finding it challenging seeing how to engage those board members, those donors, those supporters in this new way. And you've talked about the baby boomers and with those board members. How do you advise introducing something so new, so different with that same audience?
We've been really lucky that everybody's using an iPhone now, so we kind of piggyback on that and feature they're already comfortable with mobile as a technology. I mean, we found our oldest donor whips out the iPad and is comfortable with that. So we kind of skip ahead and we just say, oh, it's just really easy on your phone, and use that as sort of a springboarding point. And Classy as a platform, works well on your phone. So we don't really focus perhaps on the underlying tech. We just say, oh, let me show you. We had an event for our fundraisers the other night, and we just had them sit there on their phone, sign up, create pages, and that got people up and running, having that just additional kind of sales pitch behind it.
I'll also say we have the same issue. We've been around for almost 50 years. I think it's really important in your guts to realize that your current people might not be the people who will start this. It might well be new people. And think about how you bring new people into your organizational story, because people who've been around for 20 years, they're going to continue to be involved the way they've been involved for those 20 years. And it took us a little while to realize, because registrations were sluggish, and they're still sluggish, but everyone who has launched a very successful fundraising campaign for the last year and a half in Kidney Nation, they've been new people that we never knew before. And they found us through research, or they saw an ad on Facebook because we were trying to figure out how to draw in a new audience. And so I believe, your core donor is very, very important. You should try to retain and build relationship with them. But I also think it's important to be realistic that it's okay, because you're probably looking for a new group of people to support in this specific way.
Yeah, I would add, it's a great opportunity to expand beyond what your core base is that you might have been stuck with for a little while. That they're great, but they're steady. And this is a way to expand what you're doing by attracting some people who weren't attracted to that other opportunity. Well, I just want to say thank you to our panelists for being here today and sharing your stories and the stories of your organization and how you do the work that you do. It's the first day of the collaborative, which means that most of these folks will be here for the next few days. So if you've got more questions, feel free to just come up to any of us and chat. I know Mariam has to head out tomorrow, so if you especially want to talk to Mariam, grab her today. But thank you very much for sitting here, fanning yourselves. We feel you, and we appreciate your participation and your interest in the topic. Thank you.